Hello and good day everyone. Welcome back to Complicated Relationships Reddit Stories. Hope you guys are safe and healthy. Now let's see what the story is about today. In today's story, OP says, I looked everywhere. Finally, I found a phone in the glove box in her car. I opened it and found loads of evidence. It's been about 3 years since D-Day. My wife, age 33, had started acting weird. I was researching methods to monitor her phone and computer. I wanted to try and gather some solid evidence. While I was doing that, I opened a letter I got the day before. In it was a speeding ticket, together with a picture of my wife in her car with a co-worker I was suspicious about. Examining the date, I soon figured out this was the time that she was supposed to be at a work seminar. So there was no longer any doubt about what was going on. The following Friday, my wife had her usual 3 to 4 glasses of wine to wind down from the week's work. I put something in her last glass and soon she fell asleep. Yes, I did that to find out the truth and I don't apologize for it. I opened her phone with her thumbprint and started going through it. I installed spyware and downloaded everything. There wasn't anything conclusive there, except for some strange messages back and forth with her co-worker, always talking about some presentation. It looked like they are presenting stuff 24/7. I figured there must be something else, maybe a different app or maybe a separate phone. I looked everywhere. Finally, I found a phone in the glove box in her car. I opened it in the same way and there was loads of evidence. Again, I copied everything and installed spyware. I woke up the kids. I left the 2 phones on the table in front of her with a post-it note saying, I know everything. I took the kids to my parents, told them what was going on and that I would be gone for a while. Since I had been suspicious of my wife, I had already lined up a lawyer, new bank accounts and so on. Over the next week, I prepared for the inevitable confrontation by getting all the paperwork ready for several eventualities. I had a set of papers for a clean-cut divorce, a post-nup in case we ended up discussing a reconciliation, and so on. The pain of the situation was unbearable, but I knew what this was and I knew what I needed to do. I could not show any weakness or doubt. I had to be in control. Over the course of the week, my wife was panicking more and more. Hundreds of messages and missed calls, and she would get everybody around her to try and call me as well. I simply ignored all of it. I put the phone in the drawer and got on what I knew I had to do. When I was ready, I sent a message to my wife that I would be over to talk in the afternoon. When I arrived, she was in absolute mess. As soon as I came through the door, she fell to her knees in front of me and begged for a second chance and forgiveness. I was having none of it. I pulled my legs from her grip and just said, let's sit and talk. It probably took about 15 minutes to make it to the kitchen table. I showed no emotion. As soon as she was seated, she noticed I was not wearing my wedding ring. Then I gave her the documents for the divorce and she broke down for about 20 minutes just sobbing. I said nothing. When she finally able to speak again, she said that she would do anything to save our marriage. I pulled the divorce papers back and gave her the post-nup. She started sobbing again. I read slowly through my copy. Basically, it said I could divorce her for any reason I deemed fit. She would get nothing from me. She will get half or what she was entitled to, but no child support, no alimony, none of my pensions and none of my savings. Custody would be 50-50. She signed it right away. I told her she should probably get a lawyer and run the agreement through before she give it back to me. She said she didn't need to. I told her if she wanted to change something, that I was open to discussing in the next 2 weeks. I never actually used spyware for anything, but I have been able to verify that she has never been in contact with her AP. Then I told her to write down a complete timeline and that I knew almost everything. If I caught her in a lie or omission now or at a later date, The outcome would be an immediate divorce. I gave her a week to type it out and left. A week later, she sent me a large file that detailed everything, including her excuses and justifications. I told her to get ready to go out. I printed out a hard copy and went over to our house to pick her up. I drove her straight to her AP's house and parked in the driveway. She was in total panic at this point, asking me what we were doing there. I gave her the hard copy and told her, "You are going to confess to what you have done to his wife." She started hyperventilating. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it is something along the lines of, "I can't do this to him," or something like that. I took back the hard copy, started the car, drove down 5 to 6 blocks to the closest bus stop. At this point, I was so angry. I told her to get out of the car. She refused, saying, "Let's talk, please, we can work this out." I guess my facial expression said it all. She shut up and stared at me. She did not know what to do. I told her very calmly, "You just had a choice between your AP and your family, and you chose your AP. It's not like I'm leaving you in a ditch. This is a bus stop. You're a grown woman. I'm sure you can figure it out. Now get out of the car." My tone really left no wiggle room. She got out and asked what happens now. I just drove off so hard, it slammed the door shut. I turned around and drove straight back to AP's house. I could see my wife starting to run towards me, and I could hear her yelling in the distance as she understood what was going on. I was going to tell the AP's wife. It turns out that his wife was 5 months pregnant. She started crying loudly when she read the timelines. Her husband came running around the corner, only to freeze for a second before he bolted through the house and out the back door as soon as he recognized me. His wife later divorced him and really did a number on him in the courts. Anyway, at home, my wife was begging while I packed some things and left. On the way out, I told her confessing to the wife was a test. It was a test to see if she was over her AP and if she really took ownership of what she had done. She failed the test, and now that I have told his wife, my wife's chance to make me consider if reconciliation was even possible is gone, and there is no way of turning back time. As a result of this, we would divorce. I rented a small cheap house outside of town, more of a cabin actually. It had water heater and lights, but very little electrical heating. It was in the middle of winter with 15 degrees Celsius at night, so I pretty much had to keep the fire going or the house would be very cold. Over the next few days in the cabin, my mind just crashed. I started drinking a lot. Still, the pain was simply unbearable. I drank more and the next few days were sort of a blur. A few days later, I had a terrible pain in my arm and chest. I was severely dehydrated. It took me a minute to figure out that I have fallen on top of my whiskey bottle and smashed it. Somehow, I managed to clean up myself a bit and changed out of my dirty clothes. I wasn't really all there, but I somehow figured out that I needed to call an ambulance. My wife was still listed as my emergency contact, and I guess someone called her at some point. She was there when I woke up, and she was talking constantly. I said nothing, not a single word. I went back to my little frozen cabin and spent the next 3 weeks healing up. During this time, I started to realize that something was seriously broken inside of me. I didn't really feel anything. I didn't even miss or feel love for my kids. Eventually, I moved back into the guest room. My wife started going to church and became a devout Christian. I sort of continued to exist in limbo. I felt no connection to anybody. Started counseling, tried various prescriptions, and I even tried acupuncture, but nothing helped. One evening, I went out to get out of the house, and there was a group of women at the restaurant. They were clearly on a girls' night out or something. We got to talking. One of them was flirting pretty heavily with me. I could see from the indentation on her finger that she normally had a wedding ring on, so I knew she was married. We ended up at a hotel. While she was sleeping, I opened her phone. It didn't take me long to confirm that she was married, a family with 3 kids. I copied her husband's details, took a selfie of the two of us, got dressed and sent a picture to her husband with a message apologizing. But I also lied and told him that his wife told me that this wasn't the first time she did this. Then I woke her up and told her what I have done. I saw the pain in her eyes, the panic, and finally I felt something. It was bad, but at least I felt something. When I came home, I told my wife what I have done. I told her in a way I tried to upset her as much as possible. Now I do this on a regular basis. Every 3 to 4 weeks I go out, pick up a married woman who wants to cheat for some reason. I've become good at gathering the evidence. Often I get videos of it. Sometimes I turn it into a relationship that lasts for weeks, but in the end, I always present the evidence to their husbands. I don't know how many families I have broken up at this point, but I just can't help myself. I also say hurtful things to my wife on purpose every single time. Either I tell her as painfully as possible, or I will leave a used rubber in my pocket. I even had some of the women write me love notes that I intentionally leave in my pocket for my wife to find out. I don't know how I ended up like this. The doctors doesn't seem to have a diagnosis for me either. My wife's affair broke me in a fundamental level. Maybe I numbed off a part of my brain when I fell on the floor in that cabin. I know I can't really blame on my wife for this at this point. I can blame her for the beginning, but my continued general mess is on me. I can't really change at this point, but I hope to be able to at some point in the future. Thank you all for listening. Please like, comment and share the video if you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when we upload the next video. Take care.